spoilers ahead for Infinity War, Marvel, pretty much anything. If you've not caught up, then probably don't watch this because we touch on loads of it, but mainly Infinity War. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Screenwriters Rewatch, a series where we dive into the top 200 IMDb film list and see if these films really deserve their place in the top 200. But more importantly, if they deserve their place in the vaults below the hologram-heavy Avengers compound that is the Script Department HQ. You like that one, John? Yeah. Good one. Yeah, nice. Before we do that, though, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Check out our previous episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcast. And remember, you can always pop over to the Script Department website, where our global network of screenwriters do things. They do lots of things. It's really, really cool. And keep your ears open. At the end, we'll be revealing what we're doing next time. So very exciting. Today, joined by John and by Brad, we're going to be trying to bring balance to the universe once more as screenwriters rewatch Avengers Infinity War, written by Christopher Marcus, great last name, and Stephen McFeely. Hey everyone. So this is a pretty intense piece of event cinema we're looking at today, marketed absolutely as not a part one of two. It's its own film. It's not part one of two. It's its own thing. We don't have a part two coming up, which was basically the marketing strategy for this film. And I'm sure we'll cover Endgame at some stage, but I really wanted to look at this film in isolation as far as possible, to kind of step back from the hype, step back from the excitement of it, and see if it actually works as a film in its own right. So speaking of hype and excitement, what are you bringing to this rewatch, John?
I love Marvel, but one of the things I did struggle with in the Marvel universe for a while, I think around the middle phase, I forget what phase we're on now, but the kind of a Civil War and those kind of movies, even though I love Civil War so much, but the one thing I was really struggling with was, like, where's all this going? Because at a certain point, it did feel like, unless you'd done your homework, it was hard to tell. I know they had announced Infinity War and part one and part two, I think, or something like that at one point. And before they had a name for it, I think, or for Endgame. But again, that probably meant something to fans of the comics, but that didn't mean anything to me. Thanos didn't mean anything to me as a character in Avengers Assemble, I think, when he showed up. So I was looking for a little bit of clarity and a little bit of guidance as to where this could go. And after I saw Thor Ragnarok, and you see, I think Thanos reaching for the glove saying, I'll do this myself, or something. It was in some movie anyway at that point. I thought, oh, okay. And then when the trailer for Infinity War came out, I was like, finally, like this feels like I'm going to get like the end of a season or something here. I mean, I know each Avengers movie is almost like the end of a season for their phase, but this really felt like I was getting to the end. This was like the Return of the King. This was going to be my Return of the Jedi, whatever you want to compare it to. And yeah, so I'm really excited going into it. I think the trailer is probably one of the greatest blockbuster trailers you'll ever, that doesn't get, the hairs on your arms standing up. I don't know what will, but
sure.
And yeah, I just loved every second of it. It was all spoiled for me. But I don't care about spoilers. I'm much more interested in the experience of how we get to that spoiler moment rather than the spoiler itself. And I was just so taken aback by the ending, even though I knew it was coming. I loved it. I really love this movie, I have to say.
Yeah. Brad, what about you? What are you bringing with you this time?
I'm a big fan, big Avengers fan, big Marvel fan. Going into it, I did avoid spoilers, apart from the release schedule, which showed that Black Panther and Spider-Man and various other things had been slated. So that was somewhat of a spoiler, but narrative spoilers, I didn't have any. So I was very happy to get in there without having anything ruined. Off the back of Civil War, super excited to see big groups of these superhuman beings, like beating seven bells out of each other. So that, I was excited to see how far they could take it, how far they could push it, and to have the Russo brothers at the helm again. That was a great decision. I was like, this is going to be big, and it was. It was a big film. I think there was a slight lack of peril somewhere in it for me, that he's going to destroy half the people in the universe, and even that didn't feel as there was enough peril in it, because the way that they can turn the tables and bring people back in this franchise, particularly at this period of the franchise. But I loved it. I was super, super stoked to see it, and very happy when I came at the cinema.
It was a moment in cinema history, I think, this film, and it was, because it was the culmination. Well, what felt at the time like the culmination of a something that had never been tried before. The idea of a universe of films on this scale, interconnected and interwoven. I think it was. I remember being so excited going into this. I went to see it at the cinema. I went early as well. I had no spoilers, no idea. I remember suspecting that people were going to die, because, you kind of have to, don't you? It's called Infinity War. It's the big culmination of stuff. You have to have people bite the dust. Get it?
Mm.
That was great, wasn't it? You like that?
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I kind of expected that going in, but it's still. And I suspected that you can't build up a character like Thanos, a big bad like Thanos, without kind of letting him win. Really, everything pointed in that direction, and if they had beaten him in this film, it would have felt forced. It would have felt unjust, and they didn't. So there's no point really going there. But it's one of those things that I adored at the time. And I still love. It's still a very special place in my heart for this film, but I find it very difficult to separate it from Endgame, because for me, Endgame is a superior film. I prefer it as a film. I think it's there's a lot more going on to it, and we're not here to talk about Endgame, so I'm not going to labour that point too much. But I think so. It was really interesting for me this time to rewatch this film in isolation without going on to watch Endgame in the near future, which is what I normally do. Whenever I've gone back to watch this, I've gone, oh, great, I can't wait for Endgame. I'll put that on now, or I'll watch it tomorrow, or I'll do whatever, because I want to continue the story, right? But this time was like, nope, just this one. Going to watch this on its own, which was an interesting experience. And I think the question I have is, without the follow-up, the second part of this absolutely not a two-part film, does it stand alone? And from what you guys have said, it sounds as though you think it does stand alone.
Oh, I don't think it does.
You don't think it does?
In fact, I think I'm a bit critical of the movie now. I think I'm a bigger supporter of what Endgame does. But I love the spectacle of Infinity War more. Like, I love the battle in Wakanda. I love the Thor trying to reignite the star. I love all of that stuff. I think that's so amazing. To me, Endgame feels like it's an episode of Stargate or Star Trek where they have to time hop and revisit old episodes, whereas Infinity War felt like it was a page out of Peter Jackson or George Lucas or something like that. But I do think it's let down by its ending in a weird way. Like, as amazing as the ending is in Infinity War, and as amazing, as poignant as it is, it's not an ending that has weight to it, and in hindsight. No. And it's become undermined by everything that Marvel has since gone on to do. Even Loki, his death at the beginning, which is a very powerful moment. And like, think about how much you everybody I know loved Loki and Tom Hiddleston's portrayal of it, but I just wanted them to finish Loki off, like in so many different movies. I was like, please let this be the one where because he would always get under my skin in the best possible way, as great villains should. But like, I wasn't a member of the Loki fan club, I was like, Thor beat seven bells out of this guy, and it just. And when it finally did happen at the beginning of Infinity War, I was really taken aback and I was moved by it. And I thought, how amazing is this movie that it's made me feel for this guy that I would have gladly cheered for the demise of in another movie. And what does it say about Thanos that he's able to shift my feelings towards Loki? But then it's completely undermined by the fact that you've given me a new Loki TV show. And I know it's not the same Loki or whatever, but it doesn't matter. It's Tom Hiddleston back in another show. And so I do feel it's, you're asking me about standalone. It's hard for me to think of. It's like asking about an episode of Star Trek in standalone as a standalone thing.
Absolutely,
it's hard,
Yeah, I think it was designed as the first of two, of course. It was always designed that way, no matter how they released it. And I think to try and get it to standalone would make it quite a gloomy film because everybody dies. It would, it would be a very, very different film if it was standalone, like hypothetically. But I think comparing the two, this one would arguably have more emotion in it because of the beats. Loki dying at the beginning, Hulk being completely destroyed, which we'd never seen before. This is all in the opening scene. Thor being completely wrecked. He's, to be fair, he's more upset about Heimdall getting killed than he is about Loki. His reaction's much bigger. It's like, what, that guy? But your brother's there.
He's died a bunch of times. So he's over. He's done his grieving for Loki.
Maybe he knew that it was in a Marvel film, and it's like, they'll bring him back. He'll have his own TV show before we know it.
To that point, to that point, in one of my favorite moments in Ragnarok is when I think they're in an elevator and Thor says, "I did grieve for you," or something along those lines, and you were my brother. I would have gone to hell for you, or something like that. And he says something along those lines, and it's a hell of a moment. And it does feel like they've had that, the catharsis has, the pathos has been achieved or whatever. And now when Loki does kick the bucket, then in Infinity War, I do think you're right, Mark. He has grieved for him enough, and when he does say that thing where he's like, "I think this might be the end this time." And it does feel like somebody who's numb to Loki's demise.
I think there are more moments of grief in this film. Obviously, the start of Endgame, everyone's wallowing in grief. They're living in grief. The whole world is grieving, but it's a historic thing that they're grieving. They're not grieving the moment of it happening, which we get a lot. We get Spider-Man. We could go on and on and on and on about all the moments. Wanda having to kill the man she loves or the robot she loves, it's just for me there was more emotion in this, whereas Endgame was much bigger, and some of the set pieces were so crazy. They had to live up to the hype, and they did, but because Infinity War was so big, there was a lot to live up to. It
is worthy of the title Infinity War. Very few Marvel films are worthy of their actual titles sometimes. And I think Star Wars suffers from that, and I think a lot of franchise movies do suffer from that. I think Infinity War is like, yes, I feel like I've been through the wars here. By the time we get to the end, it's amazing.
For sure. I think it's a mean question to try and say, to separate these two films, and there is no point to it in actuality, because you can't. It's like you say, they are made to be episodic and in that sense. But I think I find with this film, it's interesting. I'm a lot cooler on this film now. When I watched it, I was blown away by the scale and all this, that, and the other, and as we've said. But looking back on it now and coming out of this rewatch, it feels like a way for me to get to Endgame. That's all it feels like for me now. And I think it's possibly because we know that none of it lasts. Though there are a couple that last, of course. Vision stays dead kind of, actually, not really. But he, there you go, exactly. So, perhaps it's that some of the emotional gut punch is taken out of it. But I also think, for me, one of the problems I have with this is the characterization. And I think that a lot of these characters are served very well. But I think Captain America, Black Widow, and, that little Cap and friends are criminally underserved in this film. And I think that's the thing, is that the Russo brothers, quite rightly, and the writers of this film, Marcus and McFeely, are given a lot of credit for managing to pack all of these characters in. And don't get me wrong, I think they do an amazing job. But the compromise is Cap and friends, because they are Captain America's greatest character trait in this film is his beard. That's his thing, and very fine beard, Chris Evans. I love it. I aspire to be as great in beardiness as you. But that is his greatest character trait in this. He doesn't get a lot more. And I think as a tentpole character, as one of those big three characters, for him to be sacrificed here is an interesting decision. Of course, he gets loads more in Endgame, and that's great when he get there. But looking at this in isolation, Captain America, I feel, is woefully underserved here.
I feel slightly different about how they treated Captain America, because it almost felt to me like they were serving us up. This is Cap in exile, because that was what he was in exile for, I don't know, 2 years or something. He was in exile for a while, and the scene where he comes back is awesome, like where he catches the spear, and it's like, who's that? Oh, it's Captain America. He's back, but they don't go full Cap, because he's not really Captain America at that point. Like they can't necessarily provide that, because he's almost lost faith in the role.
But I want that explored. That's the thing, is that I want them to delve into that. I want them to. I want a Cap and Friends Disney Plus show where they go and they look at their adventures while they were in exile after Civil War. And it's one of those sad things. I want that far more than I want bloody even Moon Knight and things like that. I want careful. I know. We all know you did so well on calling it, Brad. I'm not taking anything away from you there. But I want to see that. I want to see that character fully represented in his fall from grace as the full arc of him, because I think we miss a bunch of his character arc in between Civil War and Infinity War.
What I struggled with in Infinity War, and it's the aspect. I don't mind Captain America in it. I feel like I know my screenwriter instinct or whatever is telling me you're being saved for the next one, or like this character is, again, I often cite wrestling as comparisons when I'm talking about this stuff, and sometimes you can tell like you're being preserved, like you're in this tag team match because we don't really want to use you to your full level because we need you for the big pay-per-view event, and you might get injured in the meantime, and I could tell very clearly going into this that this was very much if we surround Captain America with a bunch of other heroes, or if we surround this person and this person, so on, we can give them their moment of glory in battle and let these people save the day in the next movie. I knew who the heroes of Endgame were going to be going into this because of the way they were being used, but I didn't care because I knew this isn't the end. But the one thing I do feel is a little clumsy is Iron Man, Spider-Man, and Doctor Strange on a spaceship. It just feels like we can fly this spaceship, and we're crash landing this spaceship, and it's all a bit kind of it's all a bit just like haphazard, and it's, how the hell are you guys not dead already? And it's just
I think there was something interesting in that they met Quill almost immediately, because his whole thing was he was the only human in space.
Mm-hmm.
And then he met a whole mess of other humans on Titan, and it was
That's
like,
so true,
and it's this. I quite liked that they served that. And then he said he was from Missouri and not from Earth, and he's like, "That is Earth, you idiot."
Yeah.
I loved that narrative that it was weird. I felt weird with them going into. I was like, "Are they going into? Oh, yeah, they're going up into space. This is changing a lot about what we're used to in the sort of narrative of the whole franchise. Like, that changed a huge amount of things. But I found the scale of it at times. I thought I was going to lose track of things, but I didn't. And it shows how tight, because how distant everyone was. Some people weren't even in the same plane of existence. And it felt tight. It felt okay. I can keep up with what's going on. Not that I've got lost with many Marvel films, and some of them can get complicated, but there was a level of complexity to what was happening. Probably, not necessarily as much as Endgame, but there is a level of complexity to what's happening in this that is so well written that it's easy for you to keep up with.
Yeah, for sure. I think they balance those elements. They balance those elements so well. That's such an interesting point about Quill. With that scene is so great as well. I think that scene in that ship, I think that's my favorite moment of the whole thing. We're the Avengers, man. Like it's so great because you get those wonderful character beats like across the board there. It is, but I know what you mean. I know what you mean. It does feel a little bit clumsy, and it does feel as if you're there. But I think maybe it's meant to. Maybe it's meant to feel a little bit sort of.
I guess I would just like something that feels like it does feel like they saw a truck driving down the road and just jumped on the back of it. I think I would rather something with more, even if it was just a portal that brought them to the planet, or something, and it's just something that doesn't feel so like I have to just ignore the fact that probably should have killed you, or like that there's a lot of things that had to fall in place for you to arrive at that planet, and it was luck. I mean, you could have been brought anywhere and you might never have gone home. There was no game plan here, and I expect a game plan from Iron Man and people like that. It just felt like he had thrown himself into a dead end, and he was just saved through contrivance, just something like, there's a portal here, come on, we got to go after these guys, they've just gone through the portal with this thing, let's go back, let's go and get them, I don't know, at least we know that they're not walking into their death, so we should follow them, something.
There's a big level of coincidence in the film, isn't there? Like, I think the level of conceit and the belief you need to have with plot points is quite high. I don't think it's too far, but there are some irregularities. For me, one of the things was the strength, the disparity of strength between characters. Like, it doesn't add. Everyone was talking about Captain America grabbing Thanos' fist, and of course he was stronger than him, but he struggled a bit, and he's just a human. He's not even a superhuman. He's just the story of Captain America is he's the most athletic and strongest a human can be. He's not abnormally strong. He's the strongest a human can be, and he stopped Thanos' fist. And it's like there are a few other, like, for example, Thor takes a star to the chest, which is an amazing scene. But then Thanos can't take an axe to his chest. And it's, I know it's not just a normal axe, but there are a few like weird things where it's like, oh, that guy can fight that guy. And it's like, really? He'd just literally destroy him with his little
finger.
But
even the power of the Infinity Stone, I think I heard a lot of people online and on podcasts and stuff kind of almost rationalizing why Thanos can't just snap his finger at any point and just wipe out anybody in the room, why? And it's like, oh, he's toying with Hulk, and and it is one of the things that you have to rationalize as to why this fight has even gone on this long.
They do with the initial fight there with Hulk. They do that in the script. There's a moment where they try to step in. One of them, Ebony Moore, something like that, tries. It's one of the big guys tries to step in, and he goes, no, let him have his fun.
Yeah,
and I quite like that, So they rationalize that in the script a wee bit.
But like, why? I think it's the idea that there's an entire battle going on. I know he's not on Earth at that point, but by the time he does come into the battle, he's got almost every stone. There is no excuse for. He's got the time stone as well at that point. It's just he could have just stopped it right there and then. It wouldn't have been good for the movie, obviously. It wouldn't have been good for the audience, but you as a screenwriter have to be able to write that stuff in. They do a wonderful job in Endgame of explaining why certain characters aren't just there to snap their fingers and save the day like Captain Marvel or whatever. I think I would have liked just a little bit more explanation. Like, I love the idea that these stones take their toll on you. I love the idea, that image of him with his hand is just wrecked from the end after he snapped his fingers. I love that scene of him sitting down and just out of breath. He's got the wound and his hand is just gone, and he's just picking crops from his garden. And it's such an amazing, beautiful moment, one of the greatest shots in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because it's like it's the galactic dictator, preparing supper on his own on an entire abandoned planet, which is probably a giant garden for him, and he's just weak at that point, and I love that image, but it speaks so much about the power of those stones and the damage that it will do to you. Maybe feed that in just a little bit more in the script. Like, he can't just snap his finger every 2 seconds, just like Doctor Strange can't just wind his time clock every now and again and fix it. It takes its toll. There's a price to be paid with using this stuff, and I think more of that in there would have just allowed this to be a little bit more credible, because to their credit, Marvel do an incredible job of making everything credible. I know I said incredible, but they do a job of making everything credible in their movies. There are moments where this didn't feel totally credible.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that when looking at, I mean, it's interesting. You mentioned the part where they're on the spaceship and they're crashing into Titan, and for some reason, the thing that jumped out at me is that Doctor Strange can still use his magic. And for some reason, I don't know why, I don't think there's anything in it at any point that says that is an Earth-based thing, that he draws his power from the Earth or anything like that. Because the thing with Doctor Strange that always slight tangent here, but the thing with Doctor Strange that really always weirded me out is that was the movie where they made the jump from science being magical to just pure magic. Magic exists, by the way. And with no real attempt to define that up until that point. There's a wonderful scene in Thor: The Dark World, which is weird that's a wonderful scene from that film. But they Jane is talking about how they're talking about it as in it's like, oh, this is the Rainbow Bridge and it's all lovely and isn't it wonderful? And she's like, it's an Einstein-Rosen bridge. I know exactly what this is. This is just science. Like, and it plays into that idea that, I can't remember who said it. It was a wonderful quote that any sufficiently advanced technology should be indistinguishable from magic or from God, I think is the original quote, to paraphrase it. And and that's the moment there where, this film throws all of that out the window. Like, so Tony Stark's nanosuit. Nope, that's not a thing. That's there's you cannot kind of, that's not a leap. And especially when you look at Iron Man going back to the original where he's coming out of the cave and it's all kind of admittedly hyper technology, but it is you can see it. It's based in some form of reality. Black Panther. I appreciate Black Panther already happened by that point, but Black Panther's kind of kinetic armor and things like that. Doctor Strange using magic, and to come back to that point. It was weird to me that he could still use his magic off the planet. And maybe this is just a Superman thing in my head, that he draws his power from the yellow sun, which is just, not anything said anywhere. I think it was a weird moment for me. And I think that there are some things here that they perhaps they abandoned the idea of trying to explain it, because how can you science away a wizard with a sling ring? And
I think there's some weird. It's a good point about magic versus science, but there's still the crossover even with him, because he's using the time stone, which is an elemental crystal, which doesn't necessarily mean it's magic. It just means it's powerful. But then you got Shang-Chi, and it's that's magic and flying dragons. So it's like they did go all the way at the end. But there is a weird crossover between science and magic, and I don't think it's clear, but I don't think it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be mysterious, isn't it? There's a level of mystery.
So the problem I have with this movie is you've touched on this by referring to previous movies, but also I think a lot of the stuff that's come after Infinity War has undermined Infinity War as a movie, or as a story, right? We're talking about this movie because there's such a huge fan base out there for this franchise. The fan theories and people, coming to the rescue of plot holes and things like that. Like, people care about these stories, right? When I watch WandaVision, love that show so much, but I'm thinking, here I am getting my fix of a character who should be dead. I know he's dead. I know it's just a reconstruction and all that, but I'm getting my fix, and I shouldn't be able to get my fix from. And same with Loki, and same with all these other movie stuff that's come forward. And when you look at the Eternals, I think Brad, we talked about this before. How are the Eternals not in this movie? Like, I know I'm being really cruel here and really critical. I'm not playing fair with Kevin Feige here, who's done I think Kevin Feige should have got like an honorary Oscar at the end of Endgame just for his contributions to cinema after that. But that guy is responsible for putting more bums on seats than Spielberg in his entire career in just the last 10 years, right? But you are planning a long way down the line here, and Eternals was in development when it must have been. You don't make a movie that big in overnight. Why aren't you acknowledging these other forces that exist in the universe that have a clear objection to the kind of stuff Thanos would be doing? Because he's not just trying to conquer a planet. He's trying to destroy half of life in the universe.
Yeah.
That's a big thing, And so I do feel that the more you watch Marvel after that, like anybody who says to me they've just started watching the Marvel movies or they've just properly started watching them in order, I do want to tell them, like, cherish the feeling of Endgame and Infinity War a little bit. Like, take a break from Marvel for a while and just let it sit with you, because there is something special about what those movies do that is going to be unraveled, either by stuff that happens in Endgame or by stuff that's going to happen in other movies or in other TV shows and movies after that. Like, Thanos' brother makes an appearance, and it's not what you would think. And it's just like that. If that doesn't undermine the brilliance of Josh Brolin, I don't care what the explanation is or what he's like in the comics, but I'm not going to spoil anything, but you just don't. That to me is diminishing the powerhouse that is Josh Brolin's Thanos. Speaking of other people who should have got an Oscar, if Johnny Depp can get an Oscar nomination for Jack Sparrow, this is worthy of that. This is that similar. If you're going to call out for Andy Serkis to get a Gollum Oscar, this is worthy of that, I think.
You could even call it a Thanoscar.
A Thanoscar, yeah.
Oh, you could.
That's good writing, Brad.
Oh, Brad, I'm so here for that.
It just flows out of me.
What a wonderful moment in this episode that was. I just want to let's just all sit with that for a sec.
That's going on TikTok.
That's going on TikTok. There we go. Great.
Anyway. Nice.
I was going
to say about the Eternals. Like we were very critical of the Eternals. I think the podcast didn't even come out.
No, the video broke.
It broke.
Oh no,
recording of it.
It didn't even make it to the internet because it broke. It was that we were that critical. But there's all this stuff like they don't get involved with humanity's problems, but then Thanos' brother's an Eternal, which makes Thanos an Eternal. So it's not humanity's problems. Regardless of that, for me, that proves one thing: that Eternals didn't happen. I think it was the dream of one of the characters, like someone like Groot or Drax was just dreaming this, and that was the
Here's how much I think of Eternals. Eternals is the video game Groot was playing on his Game Boy. All right, like that's how little I think of that movie.
Oh my god!
My point is that all those emotional moments at the end of the film, all those incredibly powerful Thanos's kind of thesis for how the universe should be and all that kind of stuff, it just is severely undermined as time goes on in the Marvel universe. And it is incredible to me the way that they are able to plan these movies out and have them fit into each other and have characters jump in and out of movies. I do wish that a little bit more reservation had been taken when planning the future of Marvel post Infinity War and Endgame, because there is something so special about those two movies, and it's on this list for a reason,
Yeah, we mentioned it I think it was in one of the Moon Knight. It must have been in one of the Moon Knight things because it's the only Marvel thing recently. That I feel. It was the Doctor Strange review that we did at some stage. That it feels to me that there is less of a plan now. and I expected the Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Have you seen that one, John?
Yeah.
You have.
I haven't seen it yet.
You haven't
I was
seen
stuck
it?
in an
I thought,
airport and I missed it.
Of course you were. Oh yeah, because Caleb and I were laughing about you being stuck in an airport. Yeah, I remember.
Exactly. I haven't managed to catch up yet. So
well,
I'll be
careful then. But I expected it to be more. You know what? You want to see my opinion? Go check out that video, because I actually can't make that point without spoiling it. So I'm not gonna do that.
No, but I know what you're. I think I would have expected. I would have expected Doctor Strange to be more of a pillar of where this universe is going, or this multiverse is going, rather than what it is. It does feel like it's a little bit inconsequential to, when you think of the likes of, and I think part of it is that there's no Infinity Stones anymore. Like, there was a time where this was the movie where this Infinity Stone came into play. This was the movie where this Infinity Stone, and you felt like these are puzzle pieces. I can feel these are puzzle pieces, even if I don't fully understand what they are. And I think there was a bit of hype around Doctor Strange, where if you went in there with unrealistic expectations, you would imagine that it's going to be a leader for the next batch of movies. And it definitely plays with some cool ideas, but it's not, I think, the pillar that the Thanos movies, let's say, were.
No. And I think that a part of that as well is that we are now missing those Avengers kind of tentpole movies. So, the idea that, phase 1 was capped with Avengers Assemble, or just the Avengers if you're in the States. And then, phase 2 was capped with Age of Ultron. Then phase 3 was capped with Infinity War, Endgame. And I think technically Spider-Man Far From Home was the actual final film of that. But let's face it, it ended with Endgame. You're missing those things that everything works towards, and then you kind of go, okay, we're going to do some more. Oh, another Avengers movie. Another Avengers movie. Now we're just kind of, it feels as if we're kind of stretching into the infinite distance with TV shows. I think the TV shows are part of this as well, because they're a much longer form of telling. And to be honest with you, one of my problems with Eternals, which I won't labor too long because it clearly upsets you guys, and I don't want to upset you about this. But I think one of my issues with it is that I just don't understand why it wasn't a TV show, because you could have told a 10-hour thing, and like you've got the best track record on the planet for slow burning creation of story here, and you just like, here are all these characters. What? No, Jesus, take your time over it. What a weird thing. Anyway, and I think that's why it feels as though there's less of a plan now, because these big films with these long form TV series, it just feels like we're going on. And then you have things like Moon Knight, which doesn't connect as well. Doesn't really connect, and feels at this point, I think I said before, inconsequential to the overall thing. You have there are not all of them are like that. It kind of stands on its own, I suppose, a wee bit, but it just doesn't. You don't feel the master's hand.
It feels like the TV shows. Lucasfilm have said that TV is where we're going with Star Wars from now on. It's the place where it was, where this stuff will exist, where it can exist at its best. To me, it feels like Marvel is the opposite, where TV has become the testing ground. It's the performance center the clinic where we can, iron out any issues, where we can test if people want Falcon as Captain America, and we can test out what could, Bucky look like now moving forward as a character. Let's take Wanda in the direction that maybe we could have leaned into more earlier in other films or whatever. I don't know. And we're not done with Loki. Clearly, people don't want Loki to be gone yet. What else can we do with him? That's kind of where it feels like. And I never felt in the Marvel universe that they were testing anything. It felt like, here's 50 years or 60 years, whatever, of comic books. We've tested these characters enough. Now we're giving them their moment in the spotlight, And I do think it's the challenge of getting to the end of a season, a series of television.
Yeah.
If Avengers Assemble is end of season 1 and Age of Ultron is season 2 and Civil War is season 3 and so on and so forth, I don't know if that adds up, but this is definitely the season finale. with Endgame.
This is the two-part season finale.
It's the two-part season finale,
Yeah.
and everything after that is the reboot. It's forcing it beyond its end, you know, and we've all seen countless examples of television where we've seen that happen, and it doesn't really work that well. Where you're like, this show ended 2 seasons ago. I'm not saying I don't ever want to live in a world where there's no Avengers movies, but it does feel.
But there's not at the moment, though. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
There aren't Avengers movies at the moment.
Yeah.
You have lots of people in this universe running around doing stuff, and it doesn't feel as though they connect. And I think that's the fundamental problem at the moment. I think it's the lack of Avengers movies and the lack of unifying kind of stuff. But anyway, we are way off topic from.
But Infinity War was was when Marvel was last at its best, I think. Or what that Marvel Cinematic Universe in the strict sense really was being represented, I think.
But I think what you were saying about the planning as well, like yes, like it was the MacGuffin that kept on giving, like the amount of films that parts of this glove, the gauntlet, were in. But were they always supposed to be that? Arguably, maybe, yeah. But was the Tesseract always going to be an Infinity Stone? Was that the plan all along, or did they bring that in later? Because there's been loads of evidence of them changing their minds on stuff. So, for example, Infinity War, in the trailer, Hulk was in Wakanda.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And I was really confused when he didn't come out of the Hulkbuster. Like, it almost got in my first viewing. It almost got in the way of the huge battle, because like Hulk's going to come out any minute, because I've seen him on the trailer. He's going to run through the tree. No, okay, in a minute. Hulk's going to come. Oh, okay, everyone's dead, but I'm sure Hulk's going to come through the trees in a minute. No, the credits are rolling. Okay, end credit scene. No, and he just didn't. Like, it was so they do change their minds on stuff like constantly, and I don't know. I reckon now more than ever they're going to have a plan, but they don't want us to see it.
Okay.
So when they finally hit us with it in 10 films, we'll be like, you got us.
Yeah, you bastard.
you got us with the plan.
Maybe you're right, and I am so into that. If that is the case, I will be that's dream scenario, right? Is that that it's all going on and we don't know is there. It's for you mentioned the Hulk, and because I want to go through some of the highlights of this before we start wrapping up, because there's so much great stuff going on here. Like I mentioned earlier on, one of my lowlights is the kind of characterization of Captain America. One of my highlights is that thing between Banner and Hulk, and that idea of this. And I know that outside of this world, they had a conversation, about, well, where do you want this? Let's make a Hulk movie. We're just going to hide it in like a few films. And I love that, that idea that you have, you starts out and he hates this thing that he is. It's the Jekyll and Hyde thing. In Civil War, he's running away. He come to terms. He is Hulk for the bulk of Ragnarok, and Hulk gets his own thing, and then finally, then he refuses. Hulk then refuses. Hulk is the guy being like, no, I don't want to turn into Banner, and I'm hiding away because I got beaten by this thing, and that role reversal, and then finally in Endgame to see him, transformed into Professor Hulk, which I would argue was quite upsetting because there's no trace of Hulk's actual personality left. It's just the body, but that's a conversation for another day. But I think that the way they handle all of that in this film and seeing, and Hulk is the kind of the temple of strong guys, right? In the thing, Hulk beat Thor, whether Thor wouldn't let you believe that, but Hulk beat Thor. And Hulk did all of these other things. Hulk saved the day in Avengers Assemble. So they start off, and it's this almost Save the Cat-esque idea. Oh, you're really great stuff. We're just going to show you immediately him getting absolutely owned by this guy. Oh, Thor, the next strongest Avenger? Nah, no, he's gone too. And then in we go. And the way they tie that screenwriting technique into the characterization of Thor and Banner is just freaking masterful. And I just want to sit back and just...
Brad, you mentioned how you do feel like, sometimes they're retconning their own universe to kind of just make it come together a bit more cohesively and stuff. But if there is an issue where if there is one issue in this universe, it's that the big villain just sits by the wayside and we never really see him in battle. He's always just sitting on a throne. And he's always just kind of spouting the kind of stuff that the king says to the servant, you know? And it's never, you know, if this is supposed to be a warrior that Captain America is going to be able to hold back with his, you know, with his two hands and all that, then I want to see this warrior in battle. You know, if this is a guy who has spent his years fighting, spent hundreds of years, you know, laying waste to planets, I want to see him in battle. I want to see the history lesson of Thanos. I want to hear somebody say, you don't know Thanos like I know. This is the Thanos. We see some kind of flashback to just this incredible warrior in the heat of battle. And it's like, oh crap, these guys are screwed, you know? And it's the way that Banner says when Thor arrives and it's like, oh, you are so screwed now, you know, like we know that to be true because we've seen Thor lay waste to people. I want to see that same from Thanos, but we never got it. And maybe because they just weren't thinking enough about Thanos. But that opening section that you described, Marcus, is a brilliant, it makes up for that so brilliantly. It's just the devastation he causes to our favorite characters. He's the one who kills Loki. He's the one who gets rid of Idris Elba. Which broke my heart. He's the guy who sends Thor out into space. And I have to say, sorry, but the distress call from the ship at the beginning as your first soundbite, as the first thing, the first sensory experience, this black screen, no Marvel logo, nothing, just this is the whatever USS Indianapolis, and we're all being circled by sharks here. Please send rescue, and no rescue's gonna come. Like that is sorry, I forgot the name and I had to improvise. But you are like that is just if that doesn't set the tone for what this movie is, that is incredible. Remember that beautiful ending you had in the last movie? They're dead.
They're all dead now. But you know what? That's so nice as well. That little section. That's just out of a side fun fact. That's Kenneth Branagh, who directed the first Thor film.
Yeah.
And I love that. That makes me so happy that they're as a kind of a company and as a universe, it's kind of that self-referential. They hide that little thing in there. I love that. And you're right. That it is so powerful. It's so powerful, that whole opening sequence. And I would argue, I don't think I've seen an opening to a film, certainly a film like this anyway, that really sets the tone as well as this one does. And if you want a lesson as a writer, this encapsulates perfectly the idea of arriving late and leaving early, because we don't need to see the battle going on. We've got enough bloodshed later on. Actually, just seeing the aftermath, seeing the devastation of what's just happened off screen is so much more powerful.
Think about, when you see Thor in Endgame and he's overweight and he's clearly got PTSD. Think about, it's not just the trauma that he endures, of failing to beat Thanos. Think about the dead bodies the death he witnessed prior to us coming into that film. Like the amount of his people, potentially men, women, and children, all just decimated at the hand of Thanos. Like that's there in that universe, in that film, and that is a dark film.
So it would have been almost certainly 50% of the ship that died, right? So he would because that was a race, and he would have tried to wipe out 50% of them, and it is terrifying. It's terrifying to imagine that, and the fact that they paid the tribute to Kenneth Branagh in that way, like they did, I think they did to all of the directors of the various franchises. They consulted with them. I don't think they officially co-directed anything, but they were some were exec producers. There was James Gunn and Taika Waititi and all these guys. They were consulted about their property, and it felt like all of them were there. It felt like all of the tones and the dark bits and the funny bits and everything were in it. And I think that for me, that's one of the most masterful things that they did to pull all that together.
You're right. That to go from Ragnarok, which is a complete departure from anything that we'd seen in the Marvel Universe up to that point, and then to put that into Infinity War and have that character, and it's still that character. It's that same guy from Ragnarok. It's not the Thor of the Dark World. It's not the Thor of Avengers. It's the Thor of Ragnarok who's there. And to find a way of that kind of crossing over was just bloody masterful, and really, and I think actually elevates Ragnarok. It's a great film on its own, but I think to then see that fit in. I remember watching
It does change the way I watch the ending of Ragnarok.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's great. You know, he sat there talking to. There's that bit. I think it's the way he talks to Rocket. And he says, yes, the rabbit is clearly the wisest among you, and things like that. You know, it's a lovely moment, and that's something that Thor of Ultron, Thor of the Dark World wouldn't have said. That's a Taika Waititi thing, and it comes so neatly across. So again, to undermine my point about characterization, it's so brilliantly done. Though I meant it only about Captain America, to be fair, but it's a great thing. I mean, look, it's these films are pretty special, and it's an exciting thing to look at. I think this is the most modern rewatch we've done as well. I think usually with these rewatch things, we go way back, and you know, well, not way back, but a little way backwards, and we take a look at some of the quote unquote classics. But I ask you now, with that in mind, does this count as a classic? Can we put it into the hologram-filled Avengers campus that is the script department vaults? And can it go in? Can it go in? And does it deserve its spot on the list? What do we think?
I think yes. I think it's a modern classic. I think the size of this saga, people are going to watch this for forever. Like, it's never going to get boring. This thing is brilliant. I don't think they're going to replicate this again. They're going to try and do another saga, but I don't think they can do what happened, because some of it was organic, some of it was planned, some of it was just, you know, drawn from the lore of Marvel, and it's that like cocktail I don't think comes very often, and I think it's a modern classic for me.
I don't know. I'm really torn.
Oh, John.
And I really want to say yes, and I probably will say yes, but it's the ending that I both love and I'm kind of like left a bit frustrated by, because the ending is one of the most, at the time of watching it the first time, it was one of the most incredible endings to any movie I'd ever seen. Not just a Hollywood blockbuster, but just any movie. It was the failure. It was, when do you ever see the superheroes fail in their mission? When do you ever see that many superheroes fail together? It was incredible. It was the best villain I'd ever seen. It was the best coming together of superheroes I'd ever seen. It was just the greatest spectacle. But and I know maybe this is a discussion for Endgame instead, but the complete reversal of that ending doesn't sit totally well with me. It's too easy, you know. It feels like, I know they lost 5 years in the interim, but it kind of feels like maybe not everyone should have come back. And I know one or two, I know two at least don't actually come back totally, but we still have those actors on the payroll for some reason, so it's not quite the same, is it? You know,
no.
I don't know. I am torn, because I do feel that ending doesn't have the same weight to it. Imagine if, you know, Michael Corleone killing Fredo is a dream. Mm-hmm. It does that end? Does the end? You know, you find out in part 3 it's a dream. Is the ending of part 2 that going to live on in our minds forever then as one of the great endings of cinema? Maybe not. You know, I know this wasn't a dream, but they are playing with levels of fantasy here where you might as well just say it's a dream.
So before you answer, then in that case, I think I might have an answer for you, because I'm exactly with you on that. In that I don't know. This is the first film we've done on one of these that I'm on the fence about whether or not it really does belong in the vaults, and I think I have the answer, and simply because for me, if I'm going back and I'm watching an Infinity, that one of these two films, I'm watching Endgame. I'm not watching Infinity War. I'm watching Endgame, because it's just, for me, it's a better film. But if I don't put it, so I'd want to put Endgame in the vaults. But if I put Endgame in the vaults and I don't put Infinity War in the vaults, then Endgame's got no context. In the same way that I think that, in this completely irrelevant hypothetical, in the same way that I would want to put The Godfather Part 1 and 2 in there, but I might not want to include The Godfather Part 3 or Godfather Coda in the same way. But I would include it because those first two are so great. So I think my answer to this increasingly ridiculous question is yes, it belongs in the vaults, but as a box set.
I think, is it one of the greatest pieces of cinema of all time? No. Is it potentially the greatest Marvel movie? Potentially. Because Marvel is now, if now more than ever with Disney Plus, an episodic thing. And when you go see Thor, whatever new film, God of Thunder, is it? Love and Thunder, sorry. When you go see Love and Thunder in the cinema, you're watching a TV series on the big screen. Don't kid yourself, you know? And I think Infinity War for me is a season finale with a cliffhanger, or it's the end of a show, part one of the end of a two-parter, you know? I don't know. It's the one time I don't have an answer for this, because I feel like if I say yes, I'm giving it a free ride, because it does the role reversal far too easily. If you were to tell, here's where I would say yes. If they had done an entire phase of Marvel movies before Endgame and make me feel that loss, like there's no Spider-Man, there's no Bucky, there's no whoever, right? Make me feel that loss. Then make me feel like Thanos actually won and he's out there enjoying far too many sunsets in his garden. Then you've got me, and I'll say yes, put in the... But it doesn't allow me, it gives me 6 months or whatever it is to just let me figure out how they're coming back.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
Like, that's my problem with this movie.
Yeah.
I'm not spending my time mourning them. I'm spending my time trying to figure out how they're going to solve the puzzle.
Yeah.
So
what is it then? Is it going to go in the lobby of the vault? Like, what are we doing with it? I'm confused.
It gets an honorable mention for me, but it's not going in the vault. No, it's not going in the vault. I've just convinced myself.
It's not going in the vault. Wow, that's a first.
Not for me. Endgame, I know exactly where I stand with Endgame, as I think we all do.
Mm-hmm.
I think as amazing as a spectacle of Infinity War is, it's not... They played their hand too quickly, I think. For a franchise that is amazing at playing the long game, they played it too quickly.
I'm putting it in my vault. I've got my own vault.
You got your own vault?
There. Yeah, I've just started it.
Amazing. All right, so it's just...
all right, fine. Put it in the vault. Put it in the vault. This thing means nothing.
It'll go in the... Hey, means something. Means nothing. We'll put it in the vault as a box set. We'll have it in the nice limited edition kind of black series.
We won't put it in the vault. And then in 6 months, when we do our Endgame acknowledgement, we'll put it in the vault, because that's what Endgame does, isn't it? It just fixes everything.
And
gives everybody
the
catharsis.
Deal. Let's do that.
So right now, we're not putting it in the vault. Okay.
It's not in the vault right now, but we'll...
It's just leaning up the wall by the door, waiting there for when we do Endgame.
It's just sadly sat there, just leaning there, this little DVD, like, oh no.
It's a DVD, not even a Blu-ray. I have one question for you guys before we wrap up, right? If
Okay.
you could permanently kill, like if the problem is that too many characters, they all just come back, right? Most of them come back, and even the ones who don't come back get their own TV shows for some reason. Who do you permanently kill off from that movie? Like they're gone and they're not coming back.
What, to be the most upsetting?
No, but like
because
obviously you
don't like them?
can't permanently kill off Spider-Man. There's still a lot to do with that. And I love the kind of arc of him carrying on Robert Downey Jr.'s mantle and all that. But there are some characters that you could have said, you know what, we're gonna make the audience feel something here. They're gone. And I'm not talking about coming back in a multiverse or anything like that. Who do you kill off in this movie? Like they take a bullet to the head, or they, Thanos just knocks their head off, or they're just snapped out of existence. There is no way they're coming back through time travel. What do you do?
For sure, Bucky.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because I want to see, because he has a checkered past. He's had his redemption. His redemption arc is done. And I think at that point, there's stuff for him to do in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, sure, but he is kind of just there a little bit. I'd do that from a character point of view for that, sure, but also as a motivating aspect to Steve Rogers, to see his friend finally gone. What does that do to him, and where does that put him in Endgame in a way that isn't we can bring them all back in a way that is, no, he's gone and he's dead properly. I think that would be a really interesting thing to do.
Yeah, I think the motivation thing's a good call. I'd say either Bucky, War Machine, or even Jane. Like someone to really upset one of the big boys. Yeah. They're just, something like that. Or Steve Rogers, just kill him off. That'd piss a lot of people off.
I would have Groot sacrifice himself during the star moment, because you're powering up a star. Somebody has to die, right? And you use Groot's remains to create the axe.
Oh, that's so dark.
But we've already killed. He's already been killed off.
No, but he's gone now, and that's it. There's no kid. There's no like teenager for him to take care of, and it's sad and it's heartbreaking. And it's like he's gonna live on in this axe, and I'm gonna knock Thanos' head off with this axe. And
that's so dark.
Or you have Groot,
or
you have Groot. Yeah, no, forget it. Maybe not.
You're murdering a child, man. It's so dark. I like it. Brilliant. Guys, thank you so much for that. I feel better. Well, I don't know if I do feel better about Infinity War. I usually feel better after these things, but I guess that remains to be seen.
It's a great movie, but we are asking, does it deserve to be in the pantheon of great movies? The Godfathers, the Chinatowns, the Shawshanks.
Yes, it does.
Fine.
Guys, thank you very much. Next week, Screenwriters are rewatching Top Gun. That's what we're doing next week. We're having a look at that one. So tune in for that. And thanks very much, guys. Take care. See you later. Bye-bye.